No, we can't risk it.
She's dying! What, you hate us that much?
Well, maybe for the best.
Watch until the end to see how a mother and a daughter get their life ruined by her deranged father. It just shows that monsters can take any form. Today, we're recapping a 2021 horror drama movie titled Girl in the Basement. Spoilers ahead, and let's jump right in. The narrative kicks off with our main character Sarah and her father Don hurrying Marie to the hospital as she struggles to breathe. Sarah becomes frantic as Marie ceases breathing, urging Don to speed up. Upon arrival at the hospital, Don specifically tells Sarah to remain silent. Inside, paramedics swiftly attend to Marie, administering oxygen and attempting to revive her, but unfortunately, all efforts result in a flatline on the monitor. The narrative shifts 2 decades earlier to a seemingly perfect family dinner setting. Sarah and her sister Amy are seated at the table with their parents, Dawn and Irene. The atmosphere takes a turn as Sarah's father reveals his controlling nature, forbidding her from attending a party and asserting dominance over the family. Later that evening, Sarah sneaks out with her boyfriend Chris. Upon discovering her empty room, her parents, particularly her father, view her as a troublesome presence. That's an odd thing to call your daughter. At the party, Sarah enjoys herself, dancing with Chris, who later serenades her with a song he crafted especially for her. They share expressions of love and share a kiss, Dawn waiting for her, leading to a heated argument where she vows to leave the family for good once she turns 18. Later, Sarah discusses her plans to travel across the country while working to sustain herself with her mother and sister. Her father overhears their conversation and retreats to the basement, where he reveals the existence of a hidden room concealed behind a bookshelf. 3 months pass since Sarah graduates. In a conversation with her mom, it comes to light that her father has been spending an increasing amount of time in the basement, which he refers to as his man cave. During Irene's absence from the house, Don dupes Sarah into helping him carry a box to the basement. Once there, he lures her into the secret room, claiming it to be a bomb shelter left behind by the previous owner. Locking her inside, Sarah panics and screams for help, but to no avail, as the shelter is entirely soundproof. Was he planning this for 3 months and plotting? On the 4th day of her disappearance, Sarah's worried mother calls the police. Her father visits her, coldly laying out the rules of her captivity. Henceforth, she must earn every comfort, even the clean air she breathed. Before leaving, Dawn takes advantage of Sarah's vulnerability. A police officer visits the family, suggesting Sarah may have embarked on her planned cross-country trip. However, her mother refuses to believe Sarah would leave without saying goodbye, especially before her 18th birthday. Alone and fearful, Sarah reflects on her night with Chris as the days pass by. Chris arrives at the house, and Dawn deceives him, claiming that after graduation, Sarah fled with her childhood neighbor, Steve. On the 21st day of her captivity in the basement, Sarah celebrates her 18th birthday. Her father brings her a cake and a red nightgown as a gift. When she requests a clock, he insists that she must do something for him first. After she defies him, he subjects her to a beating. Nearly a year into her captivity, it's revealed that Sarah is pregnant and her water breaks. It's hard not to say mean things about the father because of the monetization, but I'm kinda on edge. Alone, Sarah gives birth to a girl named Marie. 4 years later, Sarah is pregnant once again. Meanwhile, Don leads a secret double life, one with his wife Irene and daughter Amy, and another in the basement with Sarah and her daughter Marie. Despite Irene's concerns about Sarah's whereabouts, Don adamantly refuses to hire a private investigator. That should have been a red flag. As a reward for Sarah's compliance, Dawn brings a TV to the basement for Sarah and Marie. Eventually, Sarah gives birth to a second baby, a boy named Michael. One night, Sarah transforms her harrowing life story into a bedtime tale, weaving princesses and knights into her narrative for her children. Chris pays another visit to the house, inquiring about Sarah's whereabouts. Amy, her sister, divulges the truth, exposing Dawn's deceit to Chris. They discuss Dawn's long-standing mistreatment of Sarah, prompting Amy's fears that Dawn might have harmed her, considering his past volatile behavior. To help pass the time and distract her children from the harsh reality outside, Sarah concocts imaginary adventures. Meanwhile, Amy and Irene confront Dawn about his lies. Tensions escalate into a heated confrontation, with a furious Irene vowing to do everything in her power to locate her missing daughter. During their argument, Dawn accidentally drops the keys on the armchair. Amy seizes the opportunity, snatching the keys and venturing into the basement in search of clues. However, Dawn catches her, retrieves his keys, and engages in a confrontation with Amy. Furious and fearful, Amy confronts Dawn, holding him responsible for Sarah's disappearance. Meanwhile, as time progresses, Sarah gives birth to another baby boy named Thomas. I was rooting for Amy to find Sarah, but he would have just locked her in as well. With a composed demeanor, Sarah convinces Dawn to take the third baby upstairs. She appeals to his sense of reason, explaining the lack of space in the basement and her inability to care for another child. Eventually, the baby is left on the house's porch to be discovered by Irene, accompanied by a heartfelt note seemingly written by Sarah. In the letter, Sarah expresses her desire for Irene to raise the baby, acknowledging her inability to provide for the child due to financial constraints with her boyfriend. Another note from Sarah pleads for assistance, but unfortunately, Dawn is the one who stumbles upon it and reacts with violence. This guy has so much luck, it's actually not fair. As the years pass in captivity, the children's vivid imaginations blossom, enriching their mother's bedtime stories. 14 years have elapsed since Sarah's confinement in the basement, and Marie has blossomed into a beautiful young girl. One evening, as Marie experiments with makeup, Dawn takes notice of her attractiveness, prompting Sarah to beg him not to touch her daughter. Wow, what a scumbag. To shield Marie from harm, Vaughn disables the power source controlling the ventilation, leaving Marie struggling for breath. Amidst her labored breathing, Marie confides her loneliness, lamenting her lack of social interaction and friends. What Marie doesn't know is that Dawn is both her grandfather and father, a fact that becomes apparent during their conversation. Meanwhile, Thomas stumbles upon his grandmother weeping in his mother's room, where Irene fondly reminisces about Sarah's remarkable qualities. Simultaneously, rain begins to seep through the basement ceiling, prompting Sarah to ascend. Armed with a spoon, she excavates a path to the surface, where she signals for help in distress. Instead of investigating, a neighbor reports the distress to Dawn, who responds with violence towards Sarah, causing her to lose her unborn child. As Sarah grieves the loss, Dawn buries the stillborn baby in the yard. In the basement, Dawn alternates between complaining and praising Thomas, now a robust athlete. This neighbor is also a scumbag. Like, what is going on in the neighborhood? When Marie and Michael inquire about venturing outside, Dawn blames Sarah for their captivity, fueling her children's curiosity. Frustrated by her children's incessant questions, Sarah succumbs to rage, demolishing their furniture before collapsing in exhaustion. Reflecting on happier times with Chris, Sarah's children tenderly cover her with a blanket and tidy up their makeshift home. They offer heartfelt apologies, prompting an emotional Sarah to reveal the truth about their life in captivity. She discloses that Dawn, who lives upstairs with Aunt Irene to look over Thomas, is also their father. Marie suffers an asthma attack upon learning the painful truth. Sensing their distress, Sarah reassures them of her love and places the blame solely on Dawn. A year later, another altercation unfolds between Dawn and Michael, initiated by Dawn's disparaging remarks about Sarah's appearance. With Dawn facing difficulties at work, the food in the basement decreases, adding to the growing tension in their confined existence. I'm surprised he gives them food at all. Facing job loss and impending foreclosure, Dawn resorts to a sinister plan to suffocate the family in the basement. He connects the car exhaust fumes to the air vent, intending to end their lives. However, his plan gets stopped when Thomas unknowingly interrupts him in the garage, accidentally saving them. Meanwhile, Dawn and the family enjoy a lighthearted barbecue in the yard, unaware of the danger looming inside. As Marie falls sick and struggles to breathe, Dawn heartlessly refuses to seek medical help. Desperate, Sarah pleads with him, making promises of silence. Now, 20 years into their captivity, the events come full circle as Marie is rushed to the hospital at the beginning of the film, marking the start of their harrowing journey. I'm again surprised that he agreed to it. Sarah is overcome with anxiety as Marie's well-being, breathing a sigh of relief when the doctors manage to save her life. However, when the nurse inquires about Marie's medical history, Sarah realizes the limitations of her homeschooling and natural remedy treatments. Feeling trapped and exhausted, Sarah discreetly searches for a means of escape in the hospital. In a daring move to create a diversion, she accidentally spills water on the medical form, seizing the opportunity to separate from Dawn. With seconds to spare before Dawn intercepts her, Sarah reaches out to the nurse, admitting her desperate need for assistance. Swift action follows as a police officer intervenes, leading to Dawn's arrest. Finally, he deserves to be in jail. Sarah breaks the news to Marie, sharing the relief of their newfound safety and freedom. Police swarm the house, freeing Michael from captivity. Irene and Thomas are heartbroken, witnessing Michael's struggle for breath as he is brought out of the basement. From the confines of the police station, Dawn observes the unfolding scene. Later, on a picturesque summer day, Mary, Thomas, and Michael frolic in the countryside, while Sarah, Irene, and Amy watch from the porch. As Mary spots someone approaching from the driveway, her face lights up. It's Chris. Arriving on his motorcycle alongside Sarah, they take a stroll together. Chris expresses regret for not searching harder for Sarah and for believing her father's deceitful stories, offering her a heartfelt gift. It's a pink motorcycle helmet, a gift he bought for her when she turned 18, a symbol of the adventure they once dreamed of sharing together. Now, united and finally free, they embark on the motorcycle ride they've longed for, embracing the joy of being together at last. I always love this kind of movie that shows sheer will and determination for survival against constant torture. I always have a satisfied feeling when it ends happily. I rate this movie a 7 out of 10. What do you think? Looks like this movie pill is starting to wear off. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Tap here to keep the effects going with this next movie, because who can stop at just one? And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, because your next movie dose is just a click away.